I really the kind of person that would be able to finish this degree? And looking back, it was really small things like people who in my lectures getting like a telescope as a Christmas gift and being really excited about it and posting it on Facebook. And I was like, I don't have a telescope. I never really wanted a telescope. Like I was always interested in how things work. How does a star work? How does a galaxy work? How does a planet form? Like the theory behind things like that was what fascinated me. I was never, not to say that I didn't like looking up at the stars, but I never picked it up as a hobby. And here, all of a sudden, here are all of these people around me who have all these different things in common, and they all watch all the Star Wars movies, and they just seemed like there was a pattern and I didn't fit into the mold.
Thank you for waiting. Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick introduction of the panelists again. We have Jeandelle, Elliot, Tamisha Smith, Cheyenne Polius, and Seraya Jones. So thank you for being here. So I will just move on to the next question that I have here, which is basically, was there any point when you wanted to give up on, studying any science in the STEM field? And if so, what made you stay?
I could go first.
Okay.
Of course, there have been times that you will feel in any industry, any field, you do have that breaking point sometimes. I remember for myself when I started, after I graduated, you feel so, happy that you got your first job opportunity. You are just ready to, hit the ground running. And I remember when I first started my first professional job as a virology analyst back in 2019. And during that time, the pandemic was not something that anybody thought would happen. And I remember being part of a team, and it was only 2 virologists on the team. And when we got our first influx of testing, I had minimal training. I had minimal experience, and that put me in a position where I had to study and work at the same time. And any of the panelists could kind of attest to that, having to study and work at the same time. So you're putting in extra hours. And sometimes it just feels depressing, especially when you're doing science. Sometimes you run tests and it doesn't work. And you have to do it all over and over and over again until you get the type of results that you need. And having to deal with clients at that particular time, where clients are requesting information, where clients are looking for their data and their reports, and everyone wants their product to work, it puts you in a very, very, kind of difficult position where you have to kind of be a miracle worker. So that was a time where I had to, where I questioned what I'm doing. Is it really worth it? And sometimes you just have to take a step back and say, you know what, science is science. There will be times when you will fail, but you just have to get up and keep going, because at the end of the day, there might be a percentage of failures, but look at all the other successes that you have had as well, and just use that as a motivation to just go back to work the next day and do the same thing, because there's always that one time that you will find something that's super interesting that it would just make your entire week, maybe even a month, and it would just take away from all the bad times that you've had.
Okay, I'll continue. So I don't want to say that I felt like giving up, but imposter syndrome is really real. What this little island girl from Dominica doing up in that big school? You know what I mean? So some days, like it's hard. Like it's difficult. It's trivial. It takes all of your energy. It takes 16 to 20-hour days sometimes. I don't want to say that I wanted to give up, but there are days I wanted to take a week off to sleep. But determination, your goals doesn't afford you those. And like I remember last semester, I was like, wow, labs, classes, trying to be a normal person and like have a social life, virtually impossible. And like now looking back, I just realized that, hey, just push through. Like every little thing, like Tamisha said, just go home, take a breather, take a nice hot bath, a glass of wine, just breathe and like think about like your goals, what you want to obtain. And like that pain and suffering is what I called it. It's temporary, right? It's really temporary. And like in the grand scheme of things, you're not even going to remember all of those little things. So like not give up, but like just feeling like, wow, I'm not sure if I'm cut out for this, but yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. For me, it wasn't that I wanted to give up, or it wasn't even that it was on the hard times that I wanted to stop. It was the imposter syndrome in my first year of university, my first semester of university. I remember just feeling like, do I belong here? Like there were so many different factors coming into play that made me question, did I make the right choice? Am I really the kind of person that would be able to finish this degree? And looking back, it was really small things like people who in my lectures getting like a telescope as a Christmas gift and being really excited about it and posting it on Facebook. And I was like, I don't have a telescope. I never really wanted a telescope. Like I was always interested in how things work. How does a star work? How does a galaxy work? How does a planet form? Like the theory behind things like that was what fascinated me. I was never, not to say that I didn't like looking up at the stars, but I never picked it up as a hobby. And here, all of a sudden, here are all of these people around me who have all these different things in common, and they all watch all the Star Wars movies, and they just seemed like there was a pattern and I didn't fit into the mold. And I remember we had a personal tutor. Everybody got assigned a personal tutor in first year, and I asked him, and I told him how I was feeling. I was like, I don't know if I belong here, because, I gave him all the reasons. And he was like, first of all, you've only been here for 2 months. Second of all, he was saying that when you look across the department, there are some of the senior professors haven't looked through a telescope in years because they just love the theoretical side of it. They just love studying it and understanding it and analyzing simulations. And they're some of the most successful people in the field. Like everybody just has their thing. And what you're describing that you like, there are a lot of professors who are exactly the same. So he's like, I think you're in the right place. And it took that person telling me, give it a chance. I mean, I wouldn't have dropped out realistically, but I did really feel like, am I really supposed to be here? And he gave me that initial reassurance. And by the time another few weeks passed, I was like, okay, I'm actually enjoying my classes. I'm doing well in my classes. Like, okay, I'm fine. I'm good where I am.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with all the panelists in terms of, I don't think there was a moment where I felt like I would drop out, but definitely discouraging moments. Before I get into my point, I just want to say, Seraya, I completely get you on that point of feeling like, wow, small island girl, what on earth am I doing at Stanford University? And I think it's so important for other women to hear us saying these things, because there are definitely other people who go through these things, but like hearing us speak about these imposter syndromes, I think it can really comfort and encourage other people going through it. But yeah, I think the most discouraging time for me was probably after A-level, before I went to university. I really struggled to find funding to go to school. So that was a really scary moment for me. And I think that's one area where in the Caribbean, we can perhaps improve in supporting students interested in STEM in terms of funding, because a lot of times you get feedback that certain degrees in engineering or STEM are not on the priority list, so you won't even get available scholarships for them, or economic costs to study them. So that was definitely a discouraging moment, but I think with anything which has already been mentioned here, you keep pushing and you keep trying and you really do not give up. And it's another reason I think mentorship is so important, because I went through it, and I'm sure there are other young women or just other young persons in the Caribbean going through the same issues of struggling to find funding to further their degrees. And so it's important for us to, after we've gone through that process and made it out successfully, go back and help others navigate that process.
And Jeandelle, I would like to thank you for that comment, because it leads right into the question that I have coming up, which is have you in any specific way advocated for change in relation to the STEM field, and you could tell us about the successes or challenges that you faced while doing that, if you have.
Yeah, so for me, I think mentorship is very, very important because I would not be here if it wasn't for mentors who invested in me and took me under their wing and literally guided me, showed me the way. So I try to reach out to other people, especially those interested in STEM, because I feel like I know the process, and I feel like when I was going through it, it was very vague for me. I did not have many people to guide me and tell me what to do. So that's something I try to do often, is to reach out to people, like help them with the application essays they may have, show them all the scholarship opportunities available, because I went through those things from scratch. Even when you get to university levels, there's certain things that are important for you to do, like doing internships during summer, and that can be hard to navigate through as a Caribbean student, as an international student at a university. So yeah, those are things that I actively try to do right now.
Just to echo on what Jeandelle said, it's the same. I think when, I forgot to tell that story, but yeah, like with her financial restrictions, when I was originally applying for undergrad, it was really hard financially. So I thought, okay, I'm just gonna do business. Can you imagine? I almost became a bit, nothing against them, but I would have missed them. And like, that's where mentorship comes in. I remember, I'm first person in my family to attain higher education. So like that guidance wasn't there. And I still don't think that I got it. So there was a lot of things to figure out. Like, a lot of people don't know that even if you're going to UE in the Caribbean with a major in STEM, you can apply to internships in the US and they will pay for everything, including your housing, your flight, and give you a stipend and like take care of you. So those are the things that I would have liked to know before I came. And that's what I am getting through with my platform on LinkedIn, even like going through the graduate school process. Also first gen, no idea what I'm doing, but like I'm keen to things. So I reached out to people, like read a lot, but it would have been easy if someone guided me, right? But it's okay because I learned on my own and then I'm able to teach people. So that's what my platform is about, where I try to just like demystify the graduate school application process in terms of like how you receive funding and like just reaching out to the previous generation. I sometimes reach out to like people from my undergrad that I know are Dominicans, so that I can hook them up with an opportunity in my previous lab, send an email saying, hey, I recommend this person. Like, I feel like as Caribbean people, I don't know if anyone of the panelists also can attest to that, but like, I don't think we're doing enough each one teach one. Like, I'm okay. I'm okay at the level that I am. How about I grab a bunch, hold someone else's hand to help them? And that's what I think I would like to see more as Caribbean people, as Caribbean women, men in STEM, just come together and like maybe form some organization that will be able to like help the other generation. Because most of us are probably first gen coming from the Caribbean and we have no idea about this world of opportunities. So yeah.
Yes, that is so true. I have been one of the individuals who basically started from scratch, didn't know what I was doing when I decided to come to the United States to study. I didn't know who to ask. There was nobody really, in my space I could have asked any questions. And research, it took an experience, because when you start off and you don't have that type of mentorship, you will fail sometimes. You have to kind of pick yourself back up. You have to do things, figure things out on your own. One problem that I have, even in our Caribbean community, is if someone has been there before and they're giving you advice, take it. And that is an issue I've had when I try to mentor individuals. I would tell people, hey, mentees, hey, this is what you need to major in. This is where you need to do your internship. These are the companies that are hiring. These are the companies where you can get an H-1B. These are the companies that will give you any type of, let's say, betterment or studies, or, they will take care of your graduate degree, cost and funding. These are the opportunities that you need to strive for. And they will turn around and say, oh, but I like this. I feel like I want to do X, Y, or Z. And then a couple years later, they fail at it. And, they come back and then they say, oh, I wish I knew. No, but I told you because I've been there before. And, there are a lot of different opportunities out there. And, you just have to research, reach out to people. That's what I did. I'm not afraid to reach out to anyone. I would go on LinkedIn and I would send a quick message. I would send a quick email. And being in the firm that I am currently, they encourage us to network. Networking is going to be your best friend when it comes to succeeding. And that's some of the things that I have done, is reach out to individuals, especially when you're just starting college. You don't know what you want to do. You're not sure where to look for the scholarships. And I, usually say, okay, do X, Y, and Z. But hey, I need you to follow the X, Y, and Z that I'm telling you, because that's what's going to, know if you're going to be successful in the long run.
I definitely resonate with all the other panelists on starting from scratch. Google was my best friend when I was applying to university, all the way from the visa application process, the university application process, what I wanted to study, how to sign up for accommodation, everything was just me finding out on my own, to the point where somebody was helping me with PhD applications. And I felt like I was cheating. I'm like, how can you be giving me all this advice? How can you just be telling me what to do, who to reach out to? Like, it felt so strange, because I realized I'd never had that somebody sitting next to me saying, here's what you do step by step to get through this process. Because like you guys say, I've been there before. So let me help you skip all the mistakes that I made, skip all the time that I spent. And that felt so strange to me. And I thought that it shouldn't be that way. It should be a common thing where, like you say, you reach out to somebody to help you, because our experience just going through the process is so priceless for somebody else who's just starting out. And that's why I kind of started sharing my story on social media and started like doing panels like this, and keeping myself open to people who would reach out in secondary school or A-level who say, hey, I want to do a degree in this country, or I want to do astronomy, or whatever else they decide they want to do. Where do I start? And I'm very open to having those discussions, even if it is just giving them some resources to start off with, and then they come back with more questions. But I'm also very big on like mentorship, even if it may not be an official mentor relationship, but just having that person they can feel like they can at least come and ask questions to, so they don't give up before they even start trying.
Interesting. I must say that, listening to you speak, it's really interesting and inspiring that, most of you, because I think that's something we don't see happening much in the Caribbean region, where those who have been before us tend not to give back sometimes. Sometimes they want to keep all the information to themselves. So it's good to see that, this generation is trying to change the narrative and wanting to give back to assist, the people coming after them. So that I think it's a good way to start, and keeping that up. And I hope those you're helping would now pass on the knowledge when they get to the point that you're at now. And I think that would just take me, into my next question. Being that mentor and giving back to these students, how do you think, as women who work in the STEM field, how do you think, and I mean, right now, you are, the US and the UK, how do you think your work or your underover could be, how do you think your work in STEM could contribute to the overall development of, the small countries in the region? I know there's two of you from Dominica and two from St. Lucia, so I guess you'll be speaking from the point of your specific country. But so how do you think the work that you do right now could help develop these small islands?
So I can think of my degree in astrophysics. When I started it, it was just about learning how the universe worked. In a way, when I look back, it was like, oh, it's selfish that I was just following my own passions. I wasn't thinking about how I could, come back. I wanted to come back home and help, but I didn't think of it from the knowledge perspective. And while I was doing my degree, I actually came across a whole world of space technology that we don't really talk about. When we talk about space, everybody thinks about going to Mars and SpaceX and Elon Musk and all the other exciting things that come onto the news. But a big part of space technology is satellites. So the weather satellites, the navigational satellites, the telecommunication satellites, those things that help our everyday life in the Caribbean, especially with some of the bad Wi-Fi we have in the Caribbean. Like that aspect of space technology or that aspect of the space sector is directly beneficial to us because we are already using those resources. All of those satellites are up in space. Like that's space science, and it's not the immediate thing you think of when you think of space. So little did I know going away to do my degree would open my eyes to that. And now I'm in a position where I can start advocating for it. I can start trying to raise awareness of why it's so important and why it's so important to be part of the space race that they call it. Even if we may not be able to build a rocket to launch into space, we don't need to do that. We can build our own mini satellites to take kind of ownership of the data that we need for our own natural disasters. Because when you think about it, all the data that we're getting now is from US-owned satellites. And I always think about what if we weren't in a place where geographically the US satellites go over the Caribbean? What if we were in a place in the world where that wasn't the case? Would we still be getting data? Is it something that is just convenient for the US to send us data? Is there some agreement that they have to, like they have a duty to send that kind of information? There's so many, to me, I haven't dived into it yet, but there's so many unanswered questions, and seeing how the world has just completely changed in the pandemic, you can't depend on the bigger countries to figure everything out, because when push comes to shove, every man for himself. So if they get into a situation where the economy is crashing or whatever the case might be, I don't say they wouldn't, I want to have faith in humanity, but there's no saying that they will not be cut us off from certain data or certain resources or make it harder for us to access. And those are the things that we need for our everyday life in the Caribbean. So I can see directly how building that kind of knowledge in the Caribbean, even if we don't have the resources to do everything that the US is doing or everything that the UK is doing, just being more knowledgeable about the things that we can do with the resources we have. And I think as a region pulling together, we can definitely create our own space sector. And again, it doesn't have to be launching up into space and taking people into space. It's literally just what's going to help us with our development.
And just continuing for St. Lucia, I guess, I think that, clearly there's a lot of work that still needs to be done to make various STEM fields viable and productive industries in the Caribbean, especially in the smaller islands like St. Lucia. But one of our greatest resources is human resource. We cannot deny that. And we do not have a lack of talented women in STEM. They're at Harvard, MIT, other great institutions carrying out cutting edge science. And so, given that we have access to those resources, if we could at least put a framework in place for investing in science and cultivating that industry, it's not impossible for us to get those same large grants and funds that other countries or other institutions get to have research facilities in the Caribbean, because there are things that would be beneficial to be studied in the Caribbean.
Okay, I'm just gonna piggyback off of what you said. That's what I was thinking, like it's an open market. Right now, we have no research facility per se for basic or translational research in the Caribbean right now. So I guess the onus is on us and of course our governments to provide support financially to us, and also a journal. Like we hear about Cell, I want to publish in Cell, of course. We hear about Nature. Next, don't worry, a couple of years, you'll hear my name in a Nature paper, okay? As the first author. But you see how excited I am about Nature and Cell, because these are huge journals for scientific publication. Here's an idea. How about we have our own journal in the Caribbean where we publish this exceptional research that we're doing, but there's no market for it right now. So I think in all of this, I love home. I love Dominica. I love the Caribbean. Why would I'm educated here. And we know that brain drain is really real, but if I'm taking it on my own, I would hope that I would have the support of other really talented and exceptional and educated women and men in the Caribbean to come join. And a research facility in the Caribbean would be clutch, because think about it logically. Work in the day, we go at the beach in the night, have a good time. Right. Campuses, Yeah, you know what I mean? Like there are great campuses. I think there's one in Curacao, but it's like satellite campuses where that we don't even know much about. So some of the big institutions actually have satellite campuses in the Caribbean where they actually do research. But how about the entire region and our governments put their financial resources together, and we make something that is a Caribbean research facility where someone like me who wants to return home, I don't have to stay here to do research, to do exciting research, when I can do it right in the Caribbean, you know? So that I think would be where I would like STEM research development to go. That's the direction I would like it to go into the Caribbean. I want it, you know, to have a time where they can say like, oh my God, this great research with thousands, hundreds of thousands of citations came from a lab in the Caribbean and from a journal that is Caribbean born. So that is my ultimate wish and like hopefully goal that I'm working towards. Like I said, I don't know what I'm doing yet, but plans, ideas.
We need to collaborate, man, right?
No, I'm serious. Like we'll obviously you know, communicate after this and see how like what we can do to move STEM forward in the Caribbean for women, for underrepresented groups, and just like, you know, we can do something.
Awesome. That is so interesting. You know, what you said, Seraya, it really is, because that's something we definitely don't have in Dominica, you know. And well, with me, I kind of had a different approach since I recently transitioned more into like a tech space. So what I realized, you know, on, you know, the first couple, you know, weeks that I was kind of studying for, you know, cybersecurity Splunk, is that there's a whole community. There is, you know, in India who actually works remotely and does work for companies in the United States, big tech companies too. We're talking Facebook, well, Meta, we're talking, you know, Amazon, you know, we're talking Tesla, and they work remotely. And then the pandemic, you know, created this whole opportunity for a lot of remote work. And that is something that we don't have in the Caribbean. And I was, you know, I remember a conversation that I had with someone, you know, back in the Caribbean. And at the time, there was a whole free training going on with Splunk and, you know, data analytics. And I said, hey, you know, jump on board, you know, do the training. And there's like, oh, well, you know, I don't have an opportunity to get a job after I'm done. I'm like, why are you worried about the job right now? Just do the training, please. Just do the training. You just never know where it could take you. And that is some of the issues that, you know, I realized that, you know, Dominica or even the Caribbean could actually introduce, is that tech world, because we don't have that. And that is something that's an opportunity that is going to grow in the next 10 or so years. Meta is building. Facebook, if you see the salaries that are being offered for people who work even remotely, they're not even in the United States. We're talking autonomous type vehicles that are being introduced. We're talking, you know, data analytics, as I mentioned before. We're talking coding. They need people who are very versed on JavaScript and C++, you know, PHP, all those different things. And you know, we shouldn't shy away and think that it's difficult to do. And if we have a, you know, a system where in the Caribbean where you actually train people from basic coding languages to even upper level type operations that you can work with, and you will be of some value and, you know, be a subject matter expert to different companies, and you can do consulting, you can do the back end work, you can be a developer, front end developer, back end developer, all those opportunities, and even do it remotely and be able to create that income for yourself and your family and still be able to even contribute to academia. So these are some of the things that I wish that, you know, could be introduced in the Caribbean, and, you know, our people should not even shy away from those things.
I am ready for a 100% remote job in St. Lucia. Like, I am so ready to live at home and work for a company overseas. That is the dream.
Cheyenne, it is so.
I think about it every night.
It is so crazy though, because I remember when I transitioned from laboratory, into working remotely. And, I literally just started working with a big 4 firm. And I'm like, okay, so do I clock in, 8 o'clock? Like, how do I do this? I'm not really sure what to do. And then my coach is telling me, Tamisha, relax, you just kind of plan your day around, having your meetings, etc. And this is how you do this, and this is how you do that. You jump on a Zoom call here, you jump on this over there. And when we're back to traveling, you might have to go on client side. But other than that, you're fine. You could stay in your bed and, be on your computer. And it's a whole different life. It's a whole different experience from me having to get up in the morning and go to work at 8 o'clock and come back home at 5. And sometimes you have to, get on your computer and do some studies here or there. But I'm able to like literally roll out of bed sometimes, grab a cup of coffee and get on my computer and be able to just work. And it feels so different. It feels like, what am I doing? Am I doing the right thing? Are they monitoring me? Like, how is everything, really is? And they said, no, you're fine. It's not that type of system. It's not that type of life. Once you're completing your projects, that's all that matters.
Yeah, I work remotely now as well, and I cannot see myself going back to like 5 days a week in an office. I just can't. There's no way.
So Tamisha, I guess I would have a question that maybe people might ask if they want to get into the tech space and, take advantage of these opportunities, and maybe finance might be a barrier. Like, what are some of the, trainings what are some of the trainings that could be available that they could get on to get their certifications to be able to dive into that space? What would you?
Okay, so one of the myths that a lot of people have when it comes to tech is that you have to have a degree. A lot of people are getting into the tech space without a degree. So what I would recommend is, number one, you want to do a Google search on what exactly do you like? What do you gravitate towards? So for example, some people might like cloud computing. Oh, I want to learn about how the cloud works. Oh, I want to learn about data analytics. Oh, I want to learn how to code. Okay, so you have to first, number one, look at what you gravitate towards. Okay, next, the second thing that you would do is that there are different training platforms. So there's Udemy, there is Coursera, there is like different Code Academy. And there, if you want to do cloud, there's Google Cloud Platform, there is AWS, which is Amazon Web Services. I believe in January last month, January, there was a free training with AWS. So you could literally sign up. And I am not even doing AWS as yet, but it's also like something that I plan on doing later this year. However, I signed up early so that I have access to the free courses. Another secret is for Coursera. A lot of people think that Coursera is expensive. Coursera, sign up for financial aid. It takes like literally 30 minutes to do a 500-word essay as to why you cannot afford to pay $50 US a month. Sign up. And I could have paid it, but I signed up anyways, because guess what? I'm saving some money.
Let me tell you, I agree. All of the opportunities that I can get for free, let me tell you, I'll 100% take advantage of that. So that's good. That is pretty good.
Yeah, so for Coursera, like right next to the course name, sign up for financial aid. So if with every certification, they might require, for example, like 5 or 8 different courses, and you will have to sign up for financial aid for those courses. But guess what? You copy, you paste. You copy, you paste, because the same goal that you have or the same answer that you're giving them is the same thing that you're going to do for all the different courses in that one certification. So this is some of the ways that you take advantage. Do not just sit back and say, okay, well, I don't know what to do. Google is your best friend. Just Google everything. And if you're not sure, reach out to somebody who's maybe in that space. But those websites, Amazon Web Services gives it to you basically, for free. I'm not sure if it's still available for free, but look at those different platforms. Additionally, LinkedIn Learning. And then when you can get, the training for free, even when you're complete with, let's say, a series of data analytics training, when you finish with that, start building your resume. Start building your resume and look for opportunities where you could maybe do, some type of work. It doesn't have to be, let's say, paid work in the beginning. Work on like a project type and start using that to build your resume, add that to your resume. And when you're going into, and don't be afraid to interview. A lot of these positions that you might, see out there, sometimes you're only 20% qualified based on the information that they provide in what you need to, complete for your task. It's okay. Don't shy away from it. Imposter syndrome. You can still do the work. A lot of it, they're going to train you on the job regardless.
Awesome, and thank you very much. And Tamisha mentioned something there, about networking, and I say Seraya is ready to get the ball rolling and start the networking process. So I think at least we're coming out of this meeting, there are some action plans that, you the panelists have already made that you're going to use. So get something rolling to see what could be done in the Caribbean region. And I'm really happy to hear that is something that all of you are really interested in and really want to give back and put, the Caribbean out there. Because to them, we're more or less maybe just a little dot, but we have the education, we have the people out there, and we're ready to do the work that needs to be done. We don't have to go and get people from outside, from the first world countries to come into our spaces to get the work done. When we have them, just that, because there are no opportunities for them, they have to go to the first world countries to get these opportunities. And that would just lead me into just the final question that I have for you, which is, what advice would you give to young girls or young women who are curious about STEM, or those who are questioning their STEM-related subjects or their careers? What advice would you give to these young women or girls?
I'm gonna start off my answer just going back to what you said about, those little islands and about like outsourcing to find people. Moving to the UK, and I've heard this from a lot of my friends who have traveled to go to school, Caribbean people will always be the smartest, most hardworking people you find in that space. Like, not knocking anybody else from any other country, but we go to these places and we shine. Like, we work so hard and we stand out in these spaces, not just because we look different, not just because we sound different, but because I feel like the work ethic that growing up in the Caribbean and going to school in the Caribbean gives you is unmatched. Like, you get this drive to just want to succeed and want to always do better. And it's when you move overseas, it stands out so much more because everybody in the Caribbean is like that. So now you move into this space where I guess maybe so many more people that some people might be more okay settling for, just average. Nothing wrong with that. But I do feel like Caribbean people, we shine everywhere we go, no matter what field it is. And that would lead into like my advice, like, believe in yourself. If you are passionate about something, all you need to do is work hard to get it. And it sounds very simple and it sounds like, oh, but what about the money? What about this? What about that? What I always tell myself is, where there's a will, there's a way. There are scholarships out there. There are people out there willing to help you. I actually paid my last tuition installment from a GoFundMe campaign because I couldn't see where else the money was coming from. And it came and I finished and I have my degree sitting pretty in my apartment. So it's like, where there's a will, there's a way. Don't think of all the things that you don't have or all of the things that could go wrong. Think of what you want to do and how you can get there. And like our panelists are saying, like Tamisha was saying, reach out to people, ask questions, ask for help. There are so many people out there who will be willing to help you. And the worst you can get is a no. The worst somebody can tell you is, no, sorry, I don't have the time, or they don't respond to you. Apart from that, you'll be getting knowledge and help that you need. So believe in yourself and ask for help. All you need to be successful in science is the passion for what you want to do and to continue working hard at it.
Yeah, I just want to like expand on Shan's last point. I think my biggest advice, or one of my biggest advice at least, to young persons would be not to be afraid to reach out. I think sometimes there's a disconnect between people who can help and then people who need the help. And from my experience, when I go to these big schools like MIT or wherever, the Caribbean people are usually very willing to help me, show me around, give me advice, guidance. I don't know if you guys know Sahai Gray, is it? She's at MIT. She helped me. There's Whitney Henry, who's from St. Lucia. She's also helped me a lot. And so I think people are very willing to help. So don't be afraid or intimidated to reach out, because it can only benefit you, and you will be so much better off like by learning from someone who has been through the process already.
Yeah, so you see the reaching out thing, yes. I'll tell you a story. So in 2019, when I graduated, I knew that I wanted to take a gap year to make myself like a strong applicant, because we go through a lot. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go to an Ivy League school, and that's point blank, period, right? So I remember going on LinkedIn or going on professors' websites, because I'm cold emailing. I'm not just sending a blank application, not me. I'm cold emailing the professors. If I'm interested in their lab and their research, I'm not only cold emailing the professors, I'm emailing their lab manager, I'm emailing a student in their lab, and someone must respond. The students are obviously always more inclined to respond. We'll set up a meeting. I remember talking to Whitney Henry in 2019. Can you imagine? I remember talking to Whitney, and it was a really good conversation. There's another Dominica, and also at Yale. I remember talking to her and just discussing. And then we talked, and I got my gap year, and I did research. But in 2020, Whitney actually reached out to me for another position, because she's like, you know what, I recommend you for something. Someone else was starting a new lab and they needed a research associate. So that kind of reach out, and that kind of organic, it has to be organic. Don't just reach out and ask people, hey, can you help me? Like, build an organic relationship with people. And that's the ideal. And that's the, I guess, the benefit of networking, right? Because a year later, she remembered me. In 5 years from now, she probably will still remember me. If I get an opportunity I think might be good for her, I will give it. So my advice is like, use your network, create organic relationships with people that you see that are doing good in the space that you want to break into. Also, like, there's going to be so many barriers. Like, yeah, we're all going through it. But like, I have this mentality in my head. I don't care what space I walk in, I'm going to own it. I mean, I might be shy in the beginning, but by the end of that interaction, you'll love me. And you'll think that, wow, this is the best person for this. Or this is like, she knows what she's doing, even if I didn't come in not knowing anything. But by the end, I will convince you that I'm the right person for this. And like, just having that confidence in yourself, and like, other women, maybe like in primary school, secondary school, like, you have to kind of decide if that is what is for you. Because like, STEM it's difficult. Like, you really, really have to put in the work. Like, I'm not joking if I say it's 16-hour days. It's the truth. You really have to put in that work. And also it has to be something that you're actually passionate about. I mean, it doesn't have to be niche. Like, you're not expected to have a niche field that you like. Like, I still have no clue what I'm doing, and that's cool. But like, just being passionate about it, and other women trying to break into STEM, like, just seek opportunities, especially like those, like, even people in like community college back home. There are opportunities outside of the Caribbean that you can qualify for. Like, just network and just Google, like everyone else said before me, is your best friend. And I just think, like, believing in yourself, having this positive mentality that, no matter what, you're going to face barriers. But you know what? Let me go back to the drawing board and like figure out how exactly I can overcome that, or put a plan together, not one plan, not 2, 3 plans. Let's think of 10 different possible scenarios. And if one fails, go back again and just like try. It just means you trying and believing in yourself.
Awesome. Yeah, so for my advice to others who are coming up, just number one, you have to start. You cannot just sit back and wait for someone or wait for an opportunity to fall into your lap. You have to start. I remember when I was overwhelmed with, working at at the lab, and I wanted to make a change. And that's when networking comes in, and that's where you have to speak to people, but you also have to come with something. And that something is, hey, I have already partially done my research. I have an idea what I want to do, and I'm just looking for some type of guidance into, which direction I should take. Because when I decided I wanted to do something different, I say, you know what? I'm going to go for tech. I'm going to, learn different things. And sometimes you never have it figured out, because anybody who knows me know I wanted to be a doctor, and that was set in stone. I wanted to be in the hospital. I wanted to do, and that is what I left Dominica to go and pursue. However, in that little space, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to transition into something else, because there's so many other opportunities out there. So the first thing I did, I did my research. The second thing I did was actually completed what I started. You cannot start something and not complete it. You have to have that drive. Even when some days it's hard, you have to complete what you're doing. And don't be afraid to, let's say, for example, in my, recently I had to send out, applications. I had to, look for jobs, tech jobs. And I am a newbie when it comes to tech. And I had absolutely zero faith in myself. But guess what? If I had to tell you back in 2019 that today in 2022 that I'm working for a Big Four firm in the United States, like nobody would believe. I didn't even believe. Even today, sometimes I I have to touch myself like, hey, the mail come and I'm like, wow, like I actually work for this company, like, and when I interviewed, I remember even during my interview process, it took so long because for these companies, and even with big schools, sometimes the interview process is a very, very long process. And I remember starting my interview process back in September. And my final interview was with a partner in the company. And during that time, I remember I'm having my video, I'm ready for the last interview, because that's where you really have to make, that person actually like you. It's all about if they like you at this point. And I remember, ready for my video and everything, lighting and everything is right. And no call. And then I was like, what is going on? Then finally, I got a call on my phone from my recruiter. So we're 15 minutes into the time of the interview. And I remember getting a call from one of my recruiters, and she said, hey, the partner's trying to reach you via phone. And I said, well, I had my phone off because I knew I had a video interview. She said, just call him right away because they might end up having to reschedule. And within 15 minutes of that interview, I had to show this man that I was somebody, I was the right candidate for the job within 15 minutes compared to a 30-45 minute type call. And he had a call exactly right after the interview. And at the beginning, he said, if I don't feel convinced enough, or if, we have to continue, he has to reschedule the interview. And within 15 minutes, I sat there and I went on and on and on about what I love about cybersecurity, what I love about this, why I think, data and, the direction that this world is going and how important data is, in our today's world. And I went on, and that is what got me my job offer. So what I'm saying is that do not be afraid of anyone. These people are just people. It doesn't really matter. People are just people, and you have to face people and understand that, hey, I'm just going to be my best self, and I'm going to speak my truth. And at the end of the day, the opportunity will come. Do not be afraid to try at all.
And with that, I say thank you to our panelists. I think it was really an inspiring and truly moving panel. I learned quite a few things. Now I'm thinking, should I have stayed and studied science? Because, all of you put something in me that made me realize, maybe I should have stayed and maybe just give the subject a try and see where I could have been. But I'd like to take this time to thank you all for being here and giving me and the attendees on there some knowledge and some insight into STEM and how, it could be, there's so much to STEM than, what we see with the AI. There's a lot one could learn, a lot to grasp, a lot of information that's out there. And let's think everybody know that using Google would be the best friend to get the knowledge and the information that they need. Because sometimes, sometimes we do not like to research things a lot of the times. And I think hearing that there, I hope, the attendees on would see that as a way to try to get some information for themselves as well. Use Google, as was said by the panelists, and let's build the Caribbean. Let's try to make a difference. Let's try to make that change. And so I am hoping someday that I'll be able to read, any article of yours that is published in the region. I'm looking forward to that. Maybe 10, 20 years from now, at least something is out. And I know, Jeandelle, you have to step out in at least the next 8 minutes or maybe before. I'd just like to thank you for being on. You personally, it was very last minute, having people dropped out at the very last minute and reaching out to you. And you agreeing to do this. I would just like to say a heartfelt thank you. You came on and it was very inspiring learning from you, and you saying that, how much what your struggles were like during school. And again, thank you. Thank each and every
Thank you for having me.
For being on. And I think, I'm not sure if that was your mom, but I think your mom was on the call also.
Yeah,
To support. Yes, that's really good. You have the support of your mom here. So that is really good also. And thank you all once again.
Thank you for organizing this.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
You're
Thanks for
welcome.
having me.
Yes. Bye.